October.
All right, Ben, thank you very much indeed. And that is the news at 6 for tonight. You can keep up to date with all those stories, of course, on our website. And here on BBC One, the news continues. We'll join our colleagues wherever you are this evening. Have a very good evening. Bye-bye.
Tonight on Reporting Scotland, Humza Yousaf says the buck stops with him after Labour win the Rutherglen by-election. As Labour celebrate a big victory, we'll have analysis of what it means and reaction from the constituency.
I think it was a good victory. I do.
Sad. Very sad.
Also in tonight's programme, Police Scotland scraps plans to take on 200 new officers in January to save money. The Police Federation says the number of officers could fall to its lowest levels since the SNP came to power. An amber warning as months' worth of rain is forecast to fall tomorrow. We'll tell you what you need to know.
And join me in Paris on the eve of Scotland's make-or-break Rugby World Cup match against Ireland.
Hello, I'm Sally Magnuson. Welcome to Thursday's programme. You blew the doors off, the Labour leader Keir Starmer told campaigners after a by-election win of a scale that surprised even the party itself. The new MP for Rutherglen and Hamilton West is Michael Shanks. He replaces Margaret Ferrier, whose breaking of COVID rules triggered the by-election. Let's just go through the numbers. Labour took more than 58% of the vote at 17,845. That was more than double the number polled by the SNP's Katie Loudon. She got 8,399 votes. And you can see there how the other parties did. Both the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats lost their deposits. And let's look at that swing too. A massive 20.4% swing from the SNP to Labour, who now have a majority of nearly 9,500. The SNP leader, Humza Yousaf, described it as a disappointing night for his party. Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar said Scotland would lead the way in delivering a UK Labour government. Our political correspondent Andrew Kerr has more.
They said you'll never beat the SNP in Scotland. And Rutherglen, you did it!
Labour delight this morning with the UK leader rushing to Scotland to celebrate.
When I left here a week ago with the team, I said, you've got to win it. You blew the doors off.
Michael Shanks, Scottish Labour Party, 17,840.
Overnight, the Labour candidate, his party and his opponents were all perhaps taken aback by the scale of the victory, polling more than double the votes of his SNP rival.
My campaign has been focused on offering people here a fresh start, a break away from the divisiveness and distraction of two failing governments.
The Conservatives and Liberal Democrats lost their deposits, suggesting pro-union tactical voting.
Can this be translated into general election success in Scotland, in the UK, and get you closer to number 10?
I hope so, but I'm humble enough to know that we have to earn every vote in this constituency, earn every vote across Scotland, and that we will only do that if we have a positive case of change to put before Scotland, a positive case of change to put before the United Kingdom.
Now, you spoke on the podium there as well about this so-called positive case for change, but are Labour really putting that forward?
The positive case for change is the huge 5 missions that I've already unveiled, and they focus, laser focused, on growing our economy in all parts of the UK, especially here in Scotland.
This felt like a major event. The party big guns were here with the former top civil servant Sue Gray, now Sir Keir's Chief of Staff, keeping an eye on celebrations.
Sir Keir Starmer will go to Labour conference this weekend in a jubilant mood after victory here, but perhaps nervous of what might lie ahead in a general election. Humza Yousaf will go to his SNP conference next weekend, battle-scarred from defeat and perhaps wary of what his members might think.
Some SNP supporters started to question the independent strategy in the wake of the result, The First Minister put on a brave face for the cameras.
Of course, I'm the leader of the SNP. The buck does absolutely stop with me, but I think everybody knows that this particular by-election has some very difficult contextual factors around it. Margaret Ferrier's reckless actions, of course, came up time and time again. And the police investigation, of course, that's engulfed the party over the last few months, again came up on a number of doorsteps. So there's a number of difficult issues around this by-election which made it a very difficult night for us indeed.
The Conservatives saw their vote blow away.
What does a result like this mean for Rishi Sunak and a possible future Conservative government?
The general election is quite some way off yet, and we will be fighting hard in many constituencies across Scotland and indeed around the UK to demonstrate that we have got a positive vision for the country, a vision that is neither Keir Starmer's nor Hamza Yousaf's.
Away from the politicians and to the people who put them there. In Rutherglen shopping centre outside the butcher. Time to digest last night's results.
I think it was a good victory. Aye, I do. Hope they do well in general election.
Do you think they'll be able to repeat that?
Hopefully. I don't think SNP will get back in again.
Did you vote?
No.
Why was that?
Empty promises, isn't it? Empty promises. You get all these promises and nothing comes alive.
Sad. Very sad. And I'm so sad that we won't get independence. We need it.
But it's to Labour the victory after so many years in the shadows of Scottish politics. A moment in the sun. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland, Rutherglen.
So that's the reaction today, but how significant is Labour's victory? And what does it mean for future election battles? Our political correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart is here to take a deeper look into what we can take from last night's result. David.
Thanks, Sally. So, Labour won last night in Rutherglen and Hamilton West, and they won big. So let's try and put this all into context. Labour took almost 60% of votes cast. That's the sort of result they used to see here when this constituency was a solid, safe Labour seat. The SNP vote took a hammering here, down to under 28%. Let's talk about swing, which indicates change in party support. Here, it was over 20% from the SNP to Labour. That's big. It's also worth looking at the Conservative vote in all of this, because their vote share collapsed to under 4%, meaning they lost their deposit, the money a party puts forward to run. In recent elections, the Tories have got 15 to 20% in this seat. It appears that their vote went to Labour. So what could be the wider context to all of this? Well, let's have a look at the electoral map for Scotland for Westminster. There's still lots of SNP yellow on it. The polling expert, Professor Sir John Curtis, says that if last night's swing was replicated in a general election, Labour could get 42 seats and the SNP could go down to 6. Now, this is broad brush analysis, and there's a huge caveat that by-elections like last night can be outliers. But Labour are now openly talking about the prospect of taking a majority of Scottish seats at the next Westminster election. That would be a big boost to Sir Keir Starmer's hopes for a Labour majority. It's important to remember where we stand today. Labour has gone from having one Scottish MP to having 2. That's hardly a game changer. But it's that possibility of a result like the one that Michael Shanks achieved last night being replicated at a general election that will have many SNP MPs looking over their shoulders. Sally.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, David. Well, these are the numbers. Let's go now to our political editor, Glenn Campbell, who joins us from Rutherglen. Glenn, your take on the result?
Well, look, it's not a surprise that Labour beat the SNP here. This seat has switched back and forward between the two parties in recent years, and the SNP more recently has not had its troubles to seek. I think it is the scale of Labour's win that is what's really significant, because for years the SNP has had a near monopoly on political momentum in Scotland. At this by-election, Labour has snatched that away. It's made it believable that they could win more seats from the SNP at the next general election, that they could make a meaningful contribution to a Labour victory across the UK. So that changes the political narrative in Scotland, and that can be quite powerful. Nobody knows what will happen at the next general election, which may still be a year or more away, but I think the SNP has been put on notice that it can't take its political dominance for granted.
And indeed, where then does that leave Hamza Yusuf and the SNP?
Well, I think this puts pressure on Hamza Yusuf as a relatively new leader. This was his first big electoral test, and some will say that he has flunked it. He is already, it would appear, less popular than his predecessor, Nicola Sturgeon, who was a proven election winner, and he has inherited from her in government some very difficult situations with underperformance in the public services, and then there is that police investigation into the SNP's finances. The SNP is also more publicly divided now than at any time since the party took power in 2007, not least on the question of independence and how they should approach that. And it may be that some of those tensions surface at the party conference in a couple of weeks' time.
Glenn Campbell in Rutherglen, thank you very much indeed. 4 days before Police Scotland's